Welcome once again to our show, and thank you for watching. It's you, the audience, who makes this the #1 show on Cable Access Network. Thank you for your emails, your calls, and your letters. We appreciate all your feedback, even critical feedback about myself, your host, and our guests. And this is Frank Avila, your host. Today we have a really interesting show. It's very practical to affect Chicago residents and even some suburban residents also in the Chicagoland area. And I want to also thank our production team, Pops, Tony, William Godomsky, and all the other people here at CAN TV who make the show possible, which I think is a public service. And I'm dedicating this show today to our friend, Randall Sherman of blessed memory. Because Randy Sherman was a CTA rider. He did not own a vehicle. He always went to the CTA meetings. He wrote a number of letters to the editor. And of course, we lost Randy to a heart attack in late October of 2010. Randy was a big fan of stamps, of philately. He was also a big fan of veterans, a member of the Des Plaines Vietnam Veterans Post. And of course, he was also a fan of public transit. He was the Secretary-Treasurer of the Illinois Committee for Honest Government, the group that sponsors this show, ICHG. He was the founder, and we miss him. And he was a big advocate of public transit and a big advocate for the CTA and improving it. And I dedicated the show to Randall Sherman. So, gentlemen, we have Donald Richie on the left, or at least my left, and Kevin Karl, Ultra Peterson, who is a professional wrestler.
Yes, and a transit activist.
And a transit advocate.
For over 20 years.
I found out that he knows one person I go to high school with, well, I won't say his real name, but of course his stage name is, because he's from Britain, Adrian Lynch.
Yes.
And I don't know if he's fought against him, but a professional wrestler. And of course, Donald, you live in the
Hyde Park
area,
Mm-hmm.
and both of you are transit activists. So tell me, what is a transit activist?
Well, first of all, we're both members of Citizens Taking Action. You can see our banner over here. The full name is Citizens Taking Action for Transit Dependent Riders. And basically what we are is...
Now, what are transit dependent riders?
Well,
those are people...
Oh, go ahead.
Those are people who do not have cars. These are people who cannot afford cabs. These are people who use transit to get to doctor's appointments, work, etc. It's to school. And basically at this point, you know, they rely on their transit service. If you do cuts, which I'll discuss later, that they're calling service adjustments, but they're actually service cuts, basically people cannot get to work or get home from work. And it's just ultimately, they have no other options. And on the south side of Chicago, you're not getting a cab at night to get home. You're walking through dangerous neighborhoods where you may be mugged or stabbed. And because they're poor, they're going to become a victim because somebody higher up decided, well, I don't think they deserve a bus.
You know, on our last show, we had a gentleman who runs the expired meter.
Mm-hmm.
A very good show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure this one will be equally good. But as they've increased these parking meter costs,
Mm-hmm.
red light cameras, now speed cameras, I think there's going to be a lot more people taking public transit. And a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
cannot afford all the aggregate costs of riding a car, whether it's the
Yes.
parking meters, paying them or getting a ticket,
Mm-hmm.
the speed cameras, the red light cameras. I don't think people can afford it. So, and as we know in the environment, it's better to ride public transit than have all these cars with the CO2 emissions on the road, and better to also decrease congestion. So I admire what you guys do. I salute it, and that's why we're doing the show, to support you and to support what you're doing. So thank you, Donald, and thank you, Kevin.
Oh,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
MK Ultra. And we'll get
KM
into
Ultra, actually.
Okay. We're going to get into that on why you were named Ultra. Okay, so dependent riders are people without cars that do not have enough money to take cabs, that do not have money to afford cars, but rely on public transit to either go to work or go to school, go shopping, whatever it is that they do in their daily lives, both necessities and pleasures of life. Okay.
Yes.
And these people are getting screwed with this Ventra Card.
Well, yes, it's unfortunately the Ventra Card was originally touted as something that would make things more convenient, would make transportation more convenient, but it's been anything but.
Well, why do you need to have a credit card or a debit card?
Well, that's the first question.
Why do you need that?
You don't. Basically, Forrest Claypool goes on Chicago Tonight and says, all these people came up to him in some store and said, you know what, I don't want to have too many cards in my wallet. This is a quote from Chicago Tonight. You can look it up on their website. and basically said, all these people, I want to have less cards in my thing, so it would be great if I could pay for my groceries with my transit card. To which nobody would have said that. Would you have ever thought
No,
of that?
that's
Would you?
ridiculous.
No.
Nobody.
No,
This
no.
is something somebody came up with because, quite honestly,
Somebody's making money
Well,
off of it.
yes, that's
well, I
what
can
it is.
Some daily or ROM friend or family
Well, I can,
is making money
well,
off
I can
this
tell you
deal.
who definitely is making money. It's Cubic Transportation Systems.
But who is part of Cubic Transportation? That's the key.
Well, that is a good. That's the $64 million question, or I should say the $454 million question, because that's how much the Ventra contract cost. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but Cubic actually was the company that was already manufacturing the magnetic strip fare cards. They also
The blue ones.
Right. And they
that
also
worked. That actually
right.
worked, unlike the Ventra
Yeah,
cards.
but those are the magnetic strip fare cards. You slide them into the slot. They're little cheap cards made out of paper. Now, the Chicago card was also made by Cubic, and now, supposedly, this is what I heard. Cubic was no longer going to manufacture or support the paper magnetic strip cards, and so they wanted to switch everybody over to this new Ventra card, which could double as a MasterCard debit card. And this technology would also make it possible for people who do not have a Ventra card to pay at the fare box using their own credit card, provided it has the optical scan technology that the Ventra card has. But the problem is that there are so many problems involved with this, which probably a lot of
One
people
hasn't
have heard
worked
about.
in fact. The rollout has not worked.
Oh,
Even
yes.
Forrest Claypool says
That's right.
that we got to set back the certain goalposts that they set up for themselves. Alderman Fioretti said, it was in the paper today, I assume he said it yesterday, that we got to relook at it and give it to a different company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is what I said earlier. We don't need a debit card for transit riders.
no,
Right.
we don't.
Or
Right.
at least an option where people could say, I don't want it. Why would you want another debit card if you already have one?
Right.
Yeah. Here's a novel idea. My monthly pass shows when it expires. If I need to buy it with cash, I can buy it with cash. If I need to buy it with a debit card or a credit card, I can buy it.
But also, there's low-income people out there that don't use credit like
Right.
many people
Yes.
do.
Right.
Of course, we're going to a cashless society, a paperless society with the internet and everything. But some people still use cash.
Right.
And those are probably the people that are using the CTA.
Yes.
Well, yes.
The poorest people in the poorest neighborhoods, where they're like, oh, well, you can easily upload more money on a computer. It's like, yeah, most of these poor people don't have computers at home. And here's another thing.
Or even
Again, we
busy-
don't want to discuss the homeless, but basically, the homeless are going to put money on their Ventra card on a computer. I mean, this is asinine. Oh,
Well-
sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
Okay,
on
well,
here.
no, that's not a
It is
swear word.
asinine.
Yeah, that's not. But that's the good point you made. Is the fact that in order to that they're encouraging people to go and register their cards. Now, I really question the legitimacy of this card registration business. First off, and this is a way in which is totally different from the old Chicago cards or the magnetic strip fare cards. First, when you get a Ventra card, you have to pay $5 for it. So you put $20 in, $5 taken out, and you only got $15 for rides. Then they say, oh, but that's not an additional fee because you could get your money back if you register the card. Well, no, because you're not registering your card for free. They want your contact information, your name, your address, phone number, and email address.
It's kind of big government, isn't it? I mean,
Well, no, as a
Big
matter of
Brother.
fact, it's big private corporation because Ventra is not run directly by the CTA. It's run by Cubic Transportation Systems.
So they're
because-
getting your name for marketing and
That's
other
correct.
purposes.
That's correct.
And the sad part is you're having a private company controlling a public fare box. You should really be scared on that one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, hey, yesterday, people apparently loved Ventra. 15,000 people got on for free during the rush hour because the Ventra machines
And
didn't
that's
work.
lost income to CTA.
Yes. And CTA sends Brian Still, their spokesman, says, oh, well, the reason why the cards aren't working is because the riders don't know what they're doing. They go and say, well, the riders don't have the cards because they did something wrong. All this stuff. It's like, no, your system is flawed. Everybody's realizing every day it's a new Ventra fiasco. It's yet another thing. Suddenly people are getting charged leaving the bus. This is
Yes.
this is not the rider's fault. This is...
Well, I heard that even the CTA drivers, the bus drivers, if you get too close to them, it could charge their credit card.
Yes, that's happened to bus drivers. It's been documented.
I got to get some kind of lead wallet or something. I don't want anybody coming close to me with this
I mean,
thing,
the
taking
sad part
money
is
out of
there
my
are people
account.
where it is charged every credit card that was in their wallet and then cycled through and went through them again.
And
You have
sometimes
people-
these people need this money. I mean, they
Yeah.
may not have a lot of money in their pocket, and that money may need to be for school or food or their
Right.
kids' tuition or whatever it is.
Right.
Their rent, babies' milk money, and that's terrible to do to somebody.
Right.
And the bad part is, and then to fight it, you've got to call Ventra, where you'll be on hold for 45 minutes, and then hung up on, and you get to call again. Well, everybody can waste daytime cell minutes, or they can...
Or their time during the day if
Oh,
they're at
yes.
work. And
Yeah.
Well, no, apparently you're not supposed to be at work, according
Well,
to CTA.
Well, yeah.
I
that-
mean,
yeah.
it's just, it's silly and asinine.
Well,
let's
that-
back forward. I want to talk about the venture more, but let's talk about the CTA in general. So here's what I've seen. When I lived in the Pilsen area, it used to be the Blue Line, okay?
Yes.
And it went from downtown through like the UIC area to the Blue Line. Now I think it's the Pink Line.
Yes.
Okay, they shut down. Now they've restored them, but when they're working class Hispanics there, they shut down the night and the weekends.
Yes.
Oh.
They brought back the weekends. Oh, and here's an interesting
But
update.
now that there's hipsters and young Caucasian people, they brought it back. But what about the working class people, the janitor, the cleaning lady who's leaving work at 2 a.m., the bus boy who's leaving the restaurant at midnight or 2 a.m.,
Well, I
that
think
are
you-
working
well, I think you
that
ma-
might not be able to afford a vehicle?
Well, I think you made a very good
Again.
point, and that is that everybody's entitled to public transportation, no matter who they are. And this is, the city provides public
but
transportation.
aren't we
as a public
favoring
interest.
higher income and not minority
Well,
areas?
let's look at the list of the service cuts that when they have cut out a lot of these, eliminated all these bus routes. These are all in poorer areas. They kept all those express buses along Lakeshore Drive, which is following the red line, which is also following the purple line. And then you have the Broadway bus right all within a 2-block thing. You have all these buses, and then on the other hand, if you live south of 95th after 10:30 at night, go ahead, have fun walking. There's only one bus that runs 24 hours south of 95th
Well.
to serve the entire city from 95th all the way down to 130th.
No, what I do
One
see
bus.
happening in Hispanic areas, because in the Little Village area one time I was there very early in the morning, and you see it in the Pilsen area, not as much now, but previously, and there are paratransit jitneys, whatever they're
Yes,
called, that are illegal or not registered or whatever you want to call them, and about 4 or 5 a.m. they start taking people to work.
Oh.
It's like a quasi unregistered cab system.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that tells me there's a market there for public transportation if they're using private, informal transportation.
Sure. They're not providing the needed public transportation in those areas. One of the things that we at Citizens Taking Action have been advocating for years is that we shouldn't be making all these cuts in train and especially in bus service. That's where the worst cuts have been. What we ought to be doing instead is expanding bus service and train service, not cutting it. But-
Because you get a wider user base.
Well, yes, but also, and you pointed out yourself, there's the fact that more public transportation will ease traffic congestion. It's also good for the environment because it means fewer people driving motor vehicles and spewing CO2
And it'll help
into the atmosphere.
because the traffic, I was away for 3 years, the traffic is unbelievable
Yes,
here.
it's gotten
Oh, yeah.
much worse.
It's gotten
And
worse.
again, Forrest Claypool on a different issue, Chicago Nights, proceeded to say, well, in other cities, people take cabs. That was his answer to this.
Is that what Forrest Claypool
Yes.
said?
On
I didn't
Chicago
know he
Tonight.
said that.
And
That's
here's the thing.
outrageous.
I'm
Well,
not
he
sure-
has the money to take it because he's had government jobs and they pay his salary. The average person doesn't get these big government jobs.
Well, the CTA board, they don't even use, they get free transit. They don't even use it because, again, they
and I don't know if it's changed, but they also got about $35,000 a year, maybe more now, pension benefits and health insurance. I know that they were talking about cutting some of those benefits.
Well, where else are you going to put the failed politicians who lost 2 elections in a row?
Right. Well, at
lost-
one time, Victor Reyes was on the board, the former head of HDO. How he escaped indictment, I don't know. And he was the lobbyist for J.C. DeCoe, who got the. He had to abstain from votes. He'd recuse himself on all these votes. There was like 500 votes that he recused himself on, or whatever the number was, because he was lobbying the agency that he was aboard on. It's inherent conflict of interest, and I think the J.C. DeCoe, the French company that made those the bus stops.
Yeah, the
that was
bus
like a
shelters.
$400 million contract.
The bus shelters with all the holes in them so that if it's windy or rainy, you get wet and it serves no protection from the wind because they have all those big openings in it.
Chicago's not southern France, So So this is not, on the Riviera or something like
Well,
that.
I mean, and you were talking about the pink line earlier. Just on October 20th, they eliminated on the weekends. They eliminated the first hour of service. So if you're trying to get home at 4 a.m. or getting to work at 4 a.m., they decided you don't need the first hour of service. They just did that. But again, they did not call it a service cut. They called it a service adjustment. Because remember, when they used to have to when they did cuts, they would have to have public hearings. Now they call it service adjustments, and all of a sudden, oh, we can do whatever. I mean, here's the thing. I'll show it to you. I'm not sure if they can get a close-up of this. Is from 2009 to 2012, on the bus map, we lost 1 foot of buses. I mean, if you guys can get a close-up, please. Actually, you would know which camera. I mean,
No, they probably can't get it, but yes, you do see a foot, obviously down the side.
A ruler next to it. I mean,
Yeah.
and again,
So you cut a lot of service, and here's the problem, like you said.
oh yeah. I mean, again,
It's becoming impossible to use a car here with the red light cameras, the speed
Yes.
cameras, the parking
Yes.
meter rates,
well,
parking
no, they
meter
want you to
tickets.
drive so they can get the higher parking tickets. They can nail you with the red light thing because that's Rom's cash cow. That's how he's going to stay out of the red. That's how we're not going to end up. We're not going to end up in junk bond status. We're just almost there because hey, we'll ticket everybody.
Well, we're using kind of junk bonds because we're floating short-term bonds
Oh
to pay
yeah,
the debt.
we're still paying
Yeah.
for the PDFs that they had in 2003 that are obsolete and in garbage cans right now.
Yeah.
And oh, don't forget the dog duty bags that some aldermen needed. So
Oh.
we're still paying for that. God bless City Hall, apparently.
So now they're going to tell you there's not enough money
Right.
to maintain
Right. They
the
always
cuts.
say that.
So what's the answer? I have a couple ideas myself, but from your perspective,
All right. Well,
Donald,
well,
from your
okay.
perspective, Kevin.
Okay. Well, I can tell you first of all that we actually came up with some solutions to the Ventra problem at CTA. Now, for starters, we're saying that the whole Ventra system needs to either be completely revamped, or else the contract with Cubic should be canceled. Now,
Yeah,
the
the
second,
non-performance.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, basically put, if you hired somebody to do something for you at your house and they did such a horrible, piss poor job, you would not pay them. You would say, go
Well,
away.
they didn't complete it. They haven't completed.
No, they haven't
performed
completed it.
to
And
their
what they have
contract.
done is basically, in order to fix the floor, they've torn out a wall and all this and going, well, we might have to charge you for that wall that we broke down, which has nothing to do with anything. This is, I mean, again, 15,000 free riders during rush hour. I mean, this is supposed to be speeding up people getting on the bus, and you have people standing there for 10 seconds trying to get the thing, and you'll have a bus driver finally says, you've tried the card 10 times, just go get on for free because,
Right.
you have 12, 13 people behind you who are going to have the same problem.
yeah.
And then CTA.
You know what I think they should return to?
Oh, what?
Tokens.
I remember, yeah.
Tokens.
I remember, well, even quarters. You remember you used to get on the bus, you could put quarters in. It was
I
a
remember
relatively
that.
a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah.
that a
And you could
student-
get a transfer. Remember, you could get a transfer. If you put money on a bus and you need to take another bus, you could buy a transfer. Instead, if you use money, or if your card doesn't work, you get on one bus, you got to pay $225. Then on the second bus, you've got to pay another $225. And on the third bus, you got to pay a new $25 because CTA a couple years ago decided we're going to eliminate transfers because, well, we're going to be douchebags. Let's be honest. There's no other.
Well, I think
logic
transfers are a good idea because usually people that get to one place to another might have to take more than one train or
yes.
bus.
Well,
right?
yeah, when they keep doing these cuts, I mean, basically,
Now,
put,
I usually, when I take the train, I have somebody drop me off at the train, and
Sure.
the train usually takes me to a location, like if it's in downtown Chicago
Sure.
Court. But if you're going from one place to another, because I'm a lawyer, so I do have a vehicle, which I actually dislike in the city of Chicago because it's so awful with traffic,
yeah.
congestion, the red light tickets, the
Oh,
parking
yes.
tickets, the cost of parking.
oh,
So I
don't
do
forget the new
like-
bike lanes that
I do
just
like
confuse
using. I do
everybody.
like using CTA. It's not as aesthetically nice as Metra, but it can get you to one place to another, and I think it's actually a little more on time than some of the Metra. Because Metra's had problems on time.
Well, recently, over the past couple of years, CTA, you have the bus bunching problems where you'll be waiting 45 minutes for a bus and then you have 6 of the same ones in a row. That's a chronic thing you'll see all over the place.
but why can't we return the money?
Oh, you mean just using money to pay?
And getting a
Now, you can also get a month pass, a year pass, or some other. And if you want a debit card, gosh, that could be an option. Why somebody want a CTA debit card is beyond
Do you
me.
really trust people like Forrest Claypool and Terry Peterson from the CTA board with access to your
Well,
bank account?
I wouldn't get a debit or credit card through the CTA. I mean, I have a debit card through my bank, and that's more than enough for me.
Yeah.
So why not use tokens? Why not allow transfers?
Bring
not
back the
allow
tokens.
cash?
Those were
And
perfect.
I think a lot of people still would buy month or year passes.
Sure.
If they're students or 6-month passes or 3-month passes.
Sure.
But the pass should let you go on everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Not any limitations to it. So one of the things I think they don't have money is that CTA was a kind of a dropping pit for patronage workers, the guys who would get fired at the city.
Oh, don't forget the failed politicians that lost multiple elections.
Yeah.
The
Well,
unelectable, we
that's
have a place
true.
for you at
Like
CTA.
Mike Wojcik got headed over to the CTA. I heard he did nothing, that sat there making $90,000 a year.
Oh, don't forget Carol Brown that claimed that she was a great financial person. That's why she was the chairman of CTA's board for how many years, except they turned out she worked at Lehman Brothers, the financial firm that basically, would that be imploded? I mean, it just
Exploded, imploded, destroyed the economy, destroyed themselves.
Yeah.
No, the economy's perfectly fine. That's why, poor people don't need buses. That's why we can eliminate it. We've cut, in the past 5 years, we did a study.
But I think CTA could be managed much better, and there's ways they could save a lot of money.
My 4-year-old daughter could probably manage CTA better than the
Well,
current.
as a matter of, well, this is something
morons.
else that we're, in terms of the Ventra deal, something else that we at Citizens Taking Action are advocating is that we're advocating that the City Council investigate this Ventra deal. Now, we still don't know what all is in the Ventra deal here. It's not been made public. And we think it should be. We think there should be more transparency in this decision-making process.
Remember, FOIA's Freedom of Information Act in Chicago nowadays don't exist. Come on.
Now-
you have Rom saying, oh yeah, well we destroyed the document. Everything's on computers now, so you erased all these computers, so you have none of these documents. Oh please, I
think there should be complete transparency in almost all level of government,
Yes.
where you put the check ledgers absent minors and HIPAA and certain things that are confidential
Right.
online,
Sure.
where you see the expenditures in real time or very close to it, within a week or a day or even a month, where you see the expenditures on a check ledger, and not have hidden expenditures that are somehow off the books or things like that. So the contract should be online, or a copy available either for free or some minimal cost for the cost of copying it for anybody who requests it. Because I do think there's somebody behind Ventra that's making money, because unfortunately that's the pattern in Chicago that's
Yes.
almost always present.
No, there is no
especially for that-
machine in Chicago.
Well, no.
There is no machine.
I tell you what you should look for. We did a little research on prior public transportation deals, not only in Chicago but in other cities such as New York and Oakland. Cubic Transportation Systems has a presence in New York and Oakland, California, and other cities. And one of the things that we found is that often somebody who worked for the public transportation agency would, after a deal was closed with Cubic, they would then get a job working for Cubic. And we should see who ends up being offered a job by Cubic.
Well, we were discussing with the gentleman who has the blog from the Expired Meter, Daly and Mary George had ended up at the law firm that did the parking meter deal.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Would you trust little Richie Daly as a lawyer for you?
No.
Would you? To even represent you for a parking ticket?
I don't think he ever once was in court as a state
How many times did it take for him to pass the bar? Was it like
Well, it was
4?
fixed for him too.
Oh
according
well,
to-
yeah. Well,
According
of
to a
course.
very prominent political person,
Oh.
it was fixed for him.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was allegedly helped by him by a person who's now passed. I don't want to mention that elected official's name, but from a very prominent person, it was in print. Rich Daly's bar exam was fixed for him.
Well, I bet you were going to get a lot of
The
city
initials
inspectors
are
at all of our
CP.
houses now.
And the other person who said it in print and also had told me personally, I'll mention only his first initial, which is E. But CP was the initial of the person who supposedly fixed it. Those in politics can guess who that is. So, what would be a 10-point plan to save money for the CTA?
Well, here's a novel thing. not necessarily to save money, but increase revenue, is called increasing ridership. Because here's the thing, CTA's great logic is they claim, well, we eliminate a bus route, it's only eliminated 1%, 1% of the ridership. Well, here's the thing, that one person is transferring to other buses. If that person's got to take a car home, have to take his car home, so he's not going to take the other buses to get to work, and he's not going to take buses to get home from work. You understand what I mean? So they did not lose 1%. They lost 6 or 7 rides, depending on how many buses and transfers he had to make. If you restored service, as opposed to cutting service, where we eliminate 28 bus routes in the past 5 years only. Just understand, we're not talking the good old days, the buses ran great, they were green and all this. No, we're talking in the past 5 years, 28 bus routes have been eliminated. 7 routes have been cut into weird things, like the Lincoln bus, where they had a hearing, 200 people showed up in Save Our Bus Route Lincoln shirts, and Forrest went, okay, I don't care, and then they cut the bus route anyway, because seniors don't need to go grocery shopping and go to doctor's appointments. They can walk from the L 3 blocks away. And then 62 routes, different bus routes, have reduced hours of service in the past 5 years. Where some of these bus routes ran till 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock. Now, the 56 Milwaukee bus is now stopping at 9:30 at night. The 44 Wallace Racine ran till 1:15 in the morning.
And I think that hurts
now
people in the
9:40.
restaurant industry, in the entertainment industry. Somebody who might be a bar back, a chef, a line cook, a dishwasher, whatever that person is. It hurts those type of people to stop at 9:30 because they're not getting off at 9:30
absolutely.
if that restaurant has dinner until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, plus cleanup, or a nightclub that might close at 2 o'clock in the
Well,
morning.
here's essentially, North Halsted Street, essentially the whole north area is all bars and clubs. Yet they eliminate, the bus used to be a 24-hour bus, to which then they
And I
eliminated
think it would decrease drunk driving.
at 12:30. Yes, of course it did.
Of course it would. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even if the people go out to have just a couple, and they're a little bit tipsy, they would be taking the bus home. But no, now, okay, well, I have no bus to get home. I can't afford a cab, so I guess I'll just drive. Vroom, vroom, boom, boom. Oh no, drunk driving's rising. Could it be CTA cuts? No, that would not do this. This is just sad and pathetic.
Well, I also think they need good board members, not just political hacks. And why do you need pension and health care benefits for the CTA board? I don't know if they've been cut. They were discussed getting cut. But in the past, you got pension benefits, health benefits, a free ridership.
Well, they've got to show up to a 2-hour meeting once a month. So, by God, they've earned all their pay and all their benefits.
Well, it's only 10 times a year, actually, because there's one time off during the summer and there's one time off
Oh,
during
but you got to
Christmas.
count the budget hearing that they're supposed to show up to. Like the original Ventra hearing, where they were having the hearing about a year ago about the Ventra thing, Forrest Claypool didn't even bother to show up to the actual meeting.
Right.
President
But
CTA
I think there's a
didn't
lot of
bother to show up.
inefficiencies. I think just by having a transparent budget, you could save a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Oh no, the problem is
And
the
I think
budget.
there's other ways.